მე ბევრი თქვენგანი იცნობს მიზანიც მე ვარ საქართველოს მეძებნის ასოციაციის ამასულებელი დირექტორი. მე გითხრათ რომ ამ ტრეინინგის თემის შერჩევისას ჩვენ ძალიან ბევრი ფერმერი გამოვკითხეთ რომ შეგვერჩიათ ისეთი თემა რომელიც განსაკუთრებით აქტუალური იქნებოდა. და შევარჩიეთ ჯერჯერობით ჩვენ გვექნება სექტემბერშიც კიდე ტრეინინგი ამ დღეებში, რომელიც 17-18 წლის ჩატარდება, პირველი ორი დღე თქვენ კი იცით ეს არის რეპროდუქცია და აწარმოება, ბოლო დღე იქნება საკვები კულტურების წარმოება. ვისაც ინტენსიური ფერმები აქვს, იმას კარგად იციან, რომ რა თქმა მნიშვნელობა აქვს რეპროდუქციის და აწარმოების მართვას ასეთ ფერმებში, იმიტომ რომ რენტაბელობა ძალიან დიდწილად დამოკიდებული ამაზე. მოგების შემცირების ერთ-ერთი მთავარი ფაქტორი ასეთ ფერმებში ის არის, რომ ხშირად ძალიან თვლდება რეპროდუქტიულობა საქონელში, ამიტომ ამ პროცესების მართვას ძალიან დიდი მნიშვნელობა აქვს. ტრეინინგს ჩაატარებს ბატონი კალე კასკი, ეს არის ესტონეთის ბუნებრივ მეცნიერებათა უნივერსიტეტის ასოცირებული პროფესორი, ძალიან ძლიერი სპეციალისტია, იმავდროულად არის ესტონეთში ყველაზე დიდი ფერმის მმართველ საბჭოში, ასევე ანუ აქვს პრაქტიკული გამოცდილებაც, ძალიან ძლიერი სპეციალისტია, დარწმუნებულია ძალიან საინტერესო ტრეინინგი იქნება და თქვენთვის ძალიან ბევრ ახალ რაღაცას გაიგებთ, იმიტომ რომ მაღალ პროდუქტიული ჯიშებით რადიკალურად მიდგომა მაღალ პროდუქტიულ ჯიშებში რადიკალურად განსხვავებული უნდა იყოს საქონელი ტრადიციული მეურნეობაში, რომელიც მწვანე ბალახს ჭამს, გულ ბალახზე დადის, ჰაერზეა, მზის შუქზეა, ხშირად ისეთი პრობლემები არ გააჩნია, როგორც მაღალ პროდუქტიულ საქონელს. ამიტომ ძალიან მნიშვნელოვანია ეს ახალი ტექნოლოგიები და ის სიახლეები, რაც დაკავშირებული ასეთ ინტენსიურ ფერმერთან ვიცოდეთ. პრინციპში ესაა, თქო ბატონ კალეს დაიწყოს და მოგესალმოს.
თუ ვინმე სტარტმანი დავებდი უმრავლესობა საჭირო იქნება დარგმანი, თან გაქვთ კურსასმენები და გქონთ იმაღალოდ.
Okay, good morning everyone from my side. First of all, I would like to thank the association Arabi for inviting me here, and it will be a very big pleasure to be here in Georgia. This is not my first time. I have been here already 2 times, and I like this country very much. It's a wonderful country, and your wine, your hospitality is excellent. Okay, I think that I don't need very much introduction about myself, because I hope that Miravi already did it, but then I'm going immediately to this topics. Okay, my task for today is to give an overview about dairy cow reproduction. And I try to cover the normal part and the pathological part. And my focus will be the reproductive tract, that's the ovaries, the uterus, and later on today we will focus on the aspects that will influence this reproductive tract work. Of course, to get the milk from cow, nowadays more than Holstein cow, what is prevalent cow breed in Estonia, it is designed or breed like this that those cows, they can give milk quite a long time without being pregnant. But anyway, finally it happens that the production will be decreased when cow will be not getting pregnant, and it means that this is very, very important to get a cow. And to achieve this goal, what we need, there is two important aspects. We need that the cow reproductive tract will be healthy, that the ovaries are working normally, that the uterus is working normally. And on another side, this is the management. And when we are talking about the management, the most important is of course the feeding. I don't know very well how is your situation in Georgia, how is your daily health, how they are doing to make, how they are performing. I have not very much information about that. In Estonia, our heads are high production rates. Last year, our average milk production was more than 9,000 liters per cow. And we have still, or already, many heads where the production level is up to 13,000. And of course, my talk is focusing on this high production cow. Because I hope that you are, in a way, your heads are in a way for the direction to high production. So, but okay, I will start with normal cycle of cow, and those are the basic principles at the beginning of what I'm going to talk. And the first one is length of the Easter cycle. And I think that you are familiar that this average Easter cycle length in cow is 21 days. And that can be your age from 18 to 24. But still, this needs some comments, this 21 days. And I'm running to that after some slides. And then the next important thing is easters, the standing heat. And again, classically, it is said that standing heat length, easters length in the cow is 18 to 18 hours. And the range can be even 30 hours. But again, I will have some comments concerning the second point a little later. And how about the ovulation? This is also important. And the ovulation in cow is occurring approximately 30 hours after the beginning of standing heat, or 12 to 18 hours after the end of standing heat. So, we also, if we are working with the cows, we also should know what are the major structures on the ovary, especially if we are doing the clinical inspection. And the normal structures in the ovaries are follicles and is the corpus luteum. And this corpus luteum we can refer as a seabed. And in my next talk, I'm also using this observation seabed. Follicles, they are crystal-like structures containing the egg. Inside the follicle is egg, which we can also call as a oocyte. And those follicles, when they are developing, they are producing the hormone. And this hormone is estrogen. And this estrogen is very important because if cow is showing the heat signs, this estrogen is the reason why our behavior is changing. So, if the estrogen level is in maximum point, then we can talk that the cow will have a standing heat, and cow will have quite soon after that ovulation. And if we are talking about corpus luteum, OCL, this looks like a hard yellow structure, and it also produces hormone. This hormone is called progesterone. And this progesterone is really responsible for maintenance of pregnancy. And I don't know how many of you are veterinarians sitting here, but this is, if there are veterinarians, then probably you had made a palpation of the ovaries. I hope that all of you can differentiate the palpation, which is what is the follicle and what is the because in the palpation, follicles, they are fluid-filled structures, and they are soft, and you may feel some fluctuation if you palpate. But the CL is a hard structure, so it's protruding on the surface of the ovary, and the consistency is hard. And there is also this top of the CL, which is very special, and you can, by your finger, you can also differentiate by this top of the CL or nipple of the CL. So, and how, maybe people who don't know exactly the situation in the ovary in cow, they may think that, okay, cow was indeed, there was ovulation, and now that's all, and nothing is not happening until the next visit. But in reality, it is not so. And this is this cow cycle now. Here is 21-day cycle. So, and we should know that follicle development in cows occurs as a wave-like pattern. And this wave consists recruitment phase, selection phase, growth phase, and dominance phase. And it means that immediately after ovulation, new batch of follicles start to develop in the ovary. This development, this recruitment stage, when many small follicles are present, it will last usually 2-3 days. And after that, the selection is made amongst those follicles here. It means that quite a lot of them will degenerate, and some are selected for further development. And this is called selection stage. And then finally, around 6-7 days after ovulation, which occurs here, one follicle is selected. And this one follicle is dominating to grow. And this is the stage of dominance of this follicle. And then this follicle, which is staying here and growing, she will grow up to 10-11 days, and then this follicle is degenerate. And immediately on that moment, when this dominant follicle degeneration starts, the same process is repeated. And the same thing are happening with recruitment, selection, growth, and dominance. And we should remember that there are different types of cows. Usually, during this 21 day, dairy cow have 2 such waves. And usually the percentage of cows who have 2 such waves is about 8%. But there is about 20% of cows who have 3 follicular waves. So it means that the first wave is about 7-8 days. The second wave is also about 7-8 days, and the final wave is also the 7-8 days, and the dominant follicle of this last wave is going to ovulation. And now maybe I'm going further on. I will comment those waves a little bit more after some slides. But something should influence the follicles to grow, and something should initiate those follicular waves. And there is a hormone which is called FSH. This is follicle stimulating hormone, and this follicle stimulating hormone which will rise immediately after ovulation. This rise is not very big, but there is a rise after ovulation, and this FSH is initiating the growth of those follicles. And either there is 1-2 waves, or if there will be 3 waves of those follicles. Every wave is preceded with this FSH rise. And this FSH is also the hormone what we can use if we are dealing, for example, with embryo transfer, and we need to grow many follicles, and then the cow is injected with the doses of FSH. And but probably you mentioned from the previous slide that this FSH is needed only at the initial phase of this development of follicular array. And further on, after this selection, during the growth stage and dominant stage, the follicle is growing toward to LH. This is the third very important hormone in the reproductive cycle. LH, luteinizing hormone. And this luteinizing hormone is causing the further growth, and also this LH is the hormone which is causing the ovulation. So, and how this all will go further on, and how this all will end. And let's say that we have that selection phase, we have this growth phase or stage, and dominance phase or stage. And now, let's say that if this is the second wave dominant follicle here, or on those cows who have three follicular waves, this is the dominant follicles from the last third wave. This follicle is pretty big. It's growing, it's a large follicle, and as bigger is the follicle, the bigger is the estrogen level. And those large dominant follicles, which are able to approach the ovulation, they are generating the estrogen. And as you can see here, that as bigger they are getting, the estrogen is going up. And immediately when the estrogen is at maximum level, there will be a positive feedback from the brain to the reproductive center in the brain. And from the hypothesis, the LH is also increased. And it means that when estrogens are in maximum level, just some hour after that, the LH will be in a maximum level. These high estrogens are causing the estrus, and this LH surge here will lead the cow to ovulation. So, but it happens only on the second or third wave dominating follicles. This is the pattern where we will see the 3 waves during this 21 day. And now my first comment for the estrus cycle length. So, of course, we do not know exactly those cows who have 3 waves or who have 2 waves. But there is a tendency that on those cattle who have 3 follicular waves during this 21-day cycle, their estrus cycle is a little bit shorter. And this is, sorry, I mean it's a little bit longer than shorter, because those waves are taking a little bit longer time for ovulation. And it means that the length of those cows, estrus cycle length, is between 20 to 24 days. It means that if you have in the head many cows who show the estrus with interval 21 or 22 or maybe 24 days, on those cows might be 3 follicles. But on those cows who have 2 follicular waves during this 21-day estrus cycle, their estrus cycle length is a little bit short. And in many cases, it will be less than 20 days. Those cows showing estrus quite often with intervals 18, 19 or 20 days. Because those 2 waves, the follicles here needs, especially this dominant, the last wave dominant follicle, it needs less time to go to ovulation. That is the reason. Now we might raise the question: is it possible to induce the cows to have more follicular waves than two? Yes, there are some research done about that, and we can influence this by feeding. If we have a very good feeding, we have nice protein, nice energy in the feeding, we may lead those cows who have previously two waves, we may lead them to that stage that they will have a great race during this 21 day of Easter Sunday. So, and if we're talking the hormones now, again, we will see that even if there is 3 follicular waves, every wave is preceded by the rise of FSH. Yeah, but again, no ovulation here, no ovulation here, but ovulation will be here. And soon I will explain to you why it is so. So, here I would like to show to you the relation this LH2, what LH is doing. So again, here was the FSH. FSH is generating the initial phase of those waves, and later on the LH is coming, and LH is the hormone which is leading this follicular development. So, and the same is here, and the same is here, but this last wave is always ending with estrus and with ovulation, if everything is going the normal way. But I want to stop a little bit here. And I don't know how is the situation in Georgia, but in our Estonian herds, where the production levels are quite high, in the last years we have tendency that more twins are born, twin calves are born than it was maybe 15-20 years ago. And there are certain science done which is saying that the influence is a high production. And if the cow is a high productive cow, the metabolism of this cow is very high. And it means that his liver, the blood flow through this cow liver is very high. And if we compare, for example, a low lactation cow or dry cow blood flow for the liver, this is roughly 700 liters per hour. But if we are taking the cow who is giving milk more than 10,000 through the liver per hour, almost 1.5 tons of the blood is moving. And what liver is doing, all the hormones which are circulating in the organism, in the blood, there will be a metabolism in the liver. And of course, during this cycle, after ovulation, there is always Cl present, and the progesterone is high. And progesterone is regulating this LH pulses here. And on those cows who have high production, they have tendency that the progesterone level for those cows is a little bit lower than in lower cows. And if the progesterone level is lower, it happens that there will be more bigger LH pulses here, especially here when the selection will be made for those follicles who are growing towards the ovulation. And if those LH pulses are higher, it might happen that from the ovulation, not only the one follicle is selected, but 2 or maybe even 3 follicles is selected. And it may lead to a situation that more twins will be born. Exactly the same situation may happen when the surrounding temperature around the cow is very high, or heat stress situation, which is probably common for you in Georgia. So I found yesterday that it is a very, very, very warm weather here, and I think it's a full summer, it's very warm weather. And also, these high temperatures will also influence the metabolism, and the same situation may occur. In Estonia, we also sometimes we have warm summers, and also our farmers, what they found after these warm summers, that if they can make the inseminations, more trees are born, especially after that time, and the inseminations were done in a very warm time. So, and this slide is about those estrogens. And despite on that there are big follicles in the middle of the cycle here. Estrogen levels are not very high. Estrogen is getting higher when the ovulation starts to approach, and then the final follicle is selected for the ovulation. But there are certain times here also when estrogen might be a little bit more high. And I don't know how is your experience, but in Estonia, a lot of farmers, they are complaining that yes, we need the insemination. We need the insemination here. Cow was in estrus, but now it happens that the cow is showing the estrus again. She's showing estrus again somewhere here, 6-7 days later. What to do? And what I'm usually asking about that is that it's very hard to do something, because the main reason here why cow is showing estrus about a week after insemination is this first wave follicle which is selected, which is dominant. And sometimes this follicle may grow as big that she can give more estrogen than needed. And this little bit more higher estrogen may cause these signs. Sometimes it may happen also here. When around day 12-13 after insemination, but most likely it's going to happen. And again, how to comment that and what to do, it's very hard to say that. Usually what I'm saying to farmers is that you should follow the heat signs very precisely. Because anyway, if the heat signs here were stronger than here, then probably this heat, of course, here, when you inseminated the cow, was probably the right heat. And this is not right. But if there is this mucus discharge here also, and probably the cervix, in this case the cervix is of course open, and then of course I'm absolutely sure that you should do probably the new insemination. Such things may happen, and why they are happening is this cow, so to say, normal estrus cycle, where may happen some disturbances. So now I'm coming to this, and usually if we have a estrus, if we have a ovulation, of the ovulation, always CL is occurring. And this CL starting to grow. This CL is reaching the maximum size around day 12. Usually the size of CL in the ovary will stay the same, and then something roughly 5 days. And average diameter of the CL at that time is 2.5 or 2.7 centimeters. And then there will be a regression. So, and after this regression, new estrus is done. And this CL is producing progesterone. We will see the progesterone curve here. Progesterone is reaching the maximum level around day 10-12. It will stay on the same level up to day 16. And now, if there is no pregnancy, if there has been no insemination, and if there is no fertilization, this CL is degenerating and new estrus is coming. And I showed you pictures here with different follicular waves, and you see that there was one dominant follicle, second dominant follicle here, and then the third dominant follicle here who was going to ovulation. And now I try to answer with this question: why the dominant follicles, either from the first wave or from the second wave, in case if there is a 3 waves, why they are not ovulating? And the reason is here. Those dominant follicles from previous waves, they are not ovulating until the progesterone is high. Progesterone is blocking this final maturation and going to ovulation. But now, when the progesterone is going down here, this progesterone block is removed and the last follicle may go to final maturation and to ovulation. And again, I'm coming back on that today in afternoon lecture, and to knowing this relation of progesterone to this follicular development. Heat synchronization schemes where the prostaglandins are used are based on this knowledge. And if we have a cow with CL and who had no inseminations, and we find the CL, we can influence this progesterone by injecting the prostaglandins, and the prostaglandins will destroy the CL. We remove the progesterone, and if on that cow had dominant follicle, somewhere here, these dominant follicles may go to final maturation, and this cow will exhibit the heat symptoms for us. This is the basic of synchronization using the prostaglandins. And why the prostaglandins? Prostaglandins are now also coming to this slide. We will see the CL development here. We will see the progesterone here. And now, if there is no embryo inside the uterus, if we haven't done the insemination, or even if we done the insemination, but something was happened with this embryo during this first 2 weeks, that embryo was dying inside the uterus before attachment to the uterus. And then the uterus start to produce prostaglandins. It means that if there is no embryo inside, around day 16, 16 and a half, the prostaglandins are coming from the uterus. Those prostaglandins via the blood flow is directed to the ovary, and those prostaglandins, they kill the CL. CL is degenerating, and the follicle which is ready here for final maturation, progesterone is going down, this follicle can go to final maturation and ovulation is occurring. Just a question, so far it is understandable what I'm talking about, is it too complicated? Okay, I don't agree to do that. So, and
one remark. My comment is that here we have 2 categories of audience. One is farmers, another is veterinarians. So for veterinarians, it's quite simple because they know these things. But for farmers, many of these details maybe it's not understandable, it's not interesting also. So this is my
anyway, this part will be so no. I just my idea is that even if you are farmers and if you don't know the details, you should know all of the basics. What might happen, and if something is and if those kind of things are happening, you have at least some knowledge and why they might happen. But okay, and if the embryo, if you made an insemination, and there is a live embryo inside the uterus, and if the embryo is still there around those days after insemination here, then this embryo inside the uterus is blocking this prostaglandin release, and this CL will stay until the end of the pregnancy, and also the progesterone level will stay until the end of the pregnancy. And then we can say that progesterone is important for keeping the pregnancy, and that CL is also important to stay there until the end of the pregnancy. Okay, and this story I already told to you that progesterone may regulate those LH pulses, and if the progesterone is high, there is less those LH pulses, and if the progesterone is lower, there is more LH pulses, and it may influence that you will have a double ovulation and you may have a cheats. Okay, and this is the relation of estrogen, progesterone, and these prostaglandins during the estrous cycle. Estrogens at the beginning higher, after estrus they are going down, they are down here. When the new estrus is coming, they are up again. Progesterone is higher up to 16 days. Prostaglandins are increasing here, and if no pregnancy, progesterone is going down. And the final slide about this maybe a little complicated part is where everything is changing together. And this is these three waves. Example, with three waves and all the hormones, the CL, everything is given here. And this is the summary about the normal cycle, how it should be. Okay, but there are not, if the cow is a hyperactive cow, and everything might not go so normally as we hope. And I will stop here now with this normal side, and I'm going to talk now about the pathologies what might happen. And one pathology that you may face in your head is anistus. It means that cow is not exhibiting any heat symptoms on that time when she should do that. So, and let's look what might be those reasons why it is so. The definition is very easy. We are saying that animals are in anistus if they are not sleeping. And it denotes the state of complete sexual inactivity with no manifestation of estrus. But you should remember that if we are talking about anistus, this is not a disease, this is not an illness. This is a sign of a variety of conditions. So, because cow is not showing the estrus also before puberty, then we are talking that this is a normal physiological anistus. Also, cow is not showing heat during pregnancy. There are some very rare cases. At the beginning of pregnancy, some cows may show heat symptoms. Again, they may show, the pregnant cows may show the heat symptoms at the end of the pregnancy, around day 8 pregnancy. And why they are doing that is, again, this follicular development at the beginning of estrus. Some follicles still may grow bigger, and they may give more estrogens. And at the end of the pregnancy, why the cows are showing the heat symptoms is that this is a normal rise of estrogens before ovulation. So, also, some seasonal effects may happen. Cow is not the seasonal breeder, but the other animals, for example, in the mares, in the domestic cats, seasonal anistus is quite common. But in cow, quite often, what is the cause is a seasonal change in physical environment. And now we can talk about the heat stress. Heat stress, for example, can be one reason where we will see that the cow is not released. Also, nutritional deficiency. If the cow is in nutritional deficiency, usually she is not showing heat symptoms. Also, lactation. The lactation is not so common in dairy cows, but in beef cows, usually until the calf is suckling. Usually they are not showing any symptoms. When calf is getting bigger, calf is suckling less, or when we will remove the calf, so it will not take very much time when cow is going to show symptoms. Also, lactational stress might cause this anistus. And also the aging, of course. But usually, yeah, in modern dairy herds, we are not reaching this aging of the cow. Usually cows are going to the culling quite soon. I can say that if it's a high productive herd, we are lucky when the cow is staying in the herd 5-6 lactations. Usually it's not staying so long. But also there can be a certain pathological conditions in the ovaries, in the uterus, which may also suppress the estrus. And actually we can divide those causes which may lead to anistus. We can divide them in two. The first ones are physiological, and I already mentioned to you that before puberty there is no estrus cycle. This is a physiological. Also during pregnancy, this is absolutely common that there is no estrus during pregnancy, except some exceptions. Lactation stress, if the production is very high, and if they're on the same time, the energy balance in a cow is not in proper order, it also may cause this physiological anistus. But more I would say here concerning this lactation stress is probably this suckling effect if the calf is suckling. And this seasonal anistus, which in cow case we can associate with heat stress mostly, because cow is not the seasonal, but very high surrounding temperatures may lead to anistus, and then we are talking about the summer time anistus. And but maybe the pathological side is more important here. And here can be this congenital anomalies. And usually, if we have those congenital anomalies, usually those cows are going to culling, because there is usually we cannot do something there. Nutritional deficiency, it can be in pathological side. There we can do something, but I'm coming from that also after lunch. Infections of reproductive organs, problems in the ovaries or problems in the uterus, they also may lead to anistus. And if there are those infections in reproductive organs, they also may lead to this hormonal imbalance, and it might also lead to anistus. If we're talking about the congenital anistus, I don't know again how many in your heads twins are born, but in Estonia the percentage of twins during the last years is 3% and even more. 20-25 years ago it was less than 1%. And if there is, if the twins together, one is a female calf and the second twin is bull calf, about 92% this female calf is infertile. So, and why this is so? It is so because if those twins are in the same uterine hall, there will be anastomosis between the fetal membranes, and usually male sexual hormones start to mature early. And those male sexual hormones, via those anastomosis between placentas, they will suppress the development of normal reproductive tract on this female calf. And it leads to that about 92% of cases this female calf is infertile. And what is wrong with that female calf is something is missing from the tubular reproductive channel. Usually on that calf is only vagina, there is no uterus, there is no cervix. But 8% of those female calves can be fertile. And it happens only in this case when those twins are in separate uterine horn. It means that the bull calf is one horn and the female calf is in another horn. But in cow case, in 92% of pregnancies, both fetuses are the same uterine horn. This is very, very rare. It's only 8% when they are in separate horns. And but we should not, because we do not always, are they in separate horns or are they in the same horn? Because if cow is giving the birth, the farmer is taking the birth, farmer is not making the palpation where they are separate. And on this case, there is possible to use a small tube or pencil to fix this female calf normally. And you can take a small time at a glass tube or take a pencil and introduce it to the vagina. And if this pencil is going to vagina more than 5 centimeters, most likely the reproductive tract of this female calf is okay. If it's not going, if it's going just 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters, not more, and you feel that it's not going, probably there is a pathology, and most likely there is only half of vagina or part of vagina, and there will be no rest of the reproductive tract. In Estonia, many farmers are doing this test if there are twins and if they are in separate sexes to twins. But if it happens so that this is a infertile female calf, which is called free Martin, usually there is no any treatment, and usually those calves are going to the grave. Also, ovarian aplasia may happen. This is not a very often condition, it's a rare condition when one or both ovaries are absent. But again, you need a veterinarian. And then in any case, if you have a cow, or if you have an heifer, especially if you have an heifer, and this heifer is already 15 months old and no estrus signs, those heifers absolutely should pass the veterinarian. What might be the problem? And of course, if veterinarian is coming and if he or she finds that both ovaries are missing, or ovaries are very, very small, or one ovary is missing, this is not, if there is a one ovary is missing and second is there is a possibility that this cow or this heifer might exhibit the estrus. But if they are very small and they are both absent, nothing to do. This is a developmental problem. And again, these animals you can send to the cow. The same situation when they are very small, the ovaries. So we are talking about the ovarian population. So because in a cow and also in heifer, normal size of the ovary should be 2.5 centimeters in diameter at least. If they are less than 2 centimeters, most likely there is something wrong, and especially if the body condition of the animal is okay, and the growth of the animal is okay, and ovaries are very, very small, probably there is this population. And again, if it happens so, most likely there is no treatment, and again, this is the animal you can cull from the. Of course, if there is a cow, and if you find very small ovaries in a cow, you may find those small ovaries, usually after parturition. And if you are doing the rectal palpation on a cow, let's say 50-60 days after parturition, and if the cow body condition score is very low, you will see that the cow is lean. Usually, you may find also very small ovaries, but this is not this population. This is the nutritional anesthesia just the cow energy status, the cow energy balance is not in a proper order, and of course organism immediately, reaction of the organism is that we stop the reproductive function. And then the ovaries are very small, there is no follicular development, and you will see the improvement when we improve the feed. Then it's getting back to the normal. Seasonal anisters, mainly there are some breeds, for example Brahman breeds, which are not in Europe. That's the only breed who have this seasonal anisters, but usually in modern dairy breeds they have no seasonal anisters. But here mostly I would like to stop here. The summer heats just. When the apparent temperatures are very high, very nice investigations done that if we compare the estrus cycles in the conditions plus 28 degrees or plus 18 degrees, then immediately we can see that the estrus cycle is longer and the estrus duration is shorter and estrus intensity is less if the surrounding temperatures are more high. But there will be a separate lecture about that today before we finish. So, very important is the nutrition of our estrus. And especially if we are talking about the Holstein cows, this is the most common problem in dairy industry, I can say. Because in most of the cows, postpartum period, at the beginning of lactation, it causes a negative energy balance. There is any cow who have no negative energy balance. Every cow had negative energy balance. Just our destiny is to keep this period of this negative energy balance as short as possible. This is our destiny. And we may see this effect more in the first calf aphers. Why? Because aphers, the lactation is coming, but on the same time, the aphers still trying to grow. And this the same situation now that they are not getting from the food so much as milk, and on the same time they are still trying to grow. This may lead to the stage that they are not exhibiting the heat for a longer time than the cows do. Usually we can say that in cows roughly 90 days it will take to get the 60% of conception rate of the population. But in aphers it will take 110 days. Why it is longer in aphers? Primarily because they are not cycling, they are not showing estrus. And we can, of course, we may try to improve the feeding after calving, but we will not get very good success on that. But we should, if we have in the head such a situation, we should look the feeding pre-partum. And this pre-partum feeding, improve the pre-partum feeding, is the best way that they are returning to better cyclicity of the population. So, because if we're providing a good pre-partum nutrition, then it leads to that the cow body condition score pre-partum is better than in case of weaker feeding before parturition. And if the body condition score is better, it's just the cow start to consume the feed better after parturition. So, there is another problem that if we will overfeed, because if the cow is too fat before parturition, this is another effect what's happening, is that this appetite is suppressed because cow is feeling that I have enough reserves. I'm quite nice. But what happens is that she has no appetite and she is overfed. And what she is starting to do is that she's starting to use his body reserves. And using these body reserves will lead to metabolic problems. And the first one is ketosis, of course. But again, more deeply, I'm talking about that after 2 hours. Okay, as it is quite a common problem in modern affairs. Already several years, the big question has been in the air that is this postpartum anestesius caused by us? Have we done something wrong with management, especially with prepartum management, feeding? Maybe the comfort for the cow is not good, maybe our heat detection is not so good, or maybe this modern high-yielding Holstein cow, it is like this that she will have this anesthesia after preparation. And there are some scientific papers which are referring on that yes, the Holstein cow, he had difficulties to show easters in normal time after preparation. And especially the heat symptoms of the preparation are quite weak. And also, if comparison of different breeds will be done about the problems, postpartum problems, of course we will see that Holstein cow is suffering quite more about uterine and ovarian disorders. So, now, if there is this postpartum anesthesia, usually we can call it as a postpartum anesthesia when cows are not showing heat if already 1.5 months is past preparation. And again, I want to say that this is no disease. Anesthesia itself is not a disease. Because if it's present, this is an indication that there might be some pathological condition somewhere in the organs why cow is shutting down the reproductive function. Or there can be either uterine or ovarian disorders. Or maybe we have some suboptimal managerial conditions. For example, our heat detection, our nutrition, our housing is not okay. And it means that those are the reasons, and that anesthesia is the outcome. This is not a disease. Okay, and again, if we are coming back to this nutrition problems, if we are talking about the high producers, usually they are in negative energy balance for a longer time. Actually, they are giving quite a lot of milk, but this maximum feed intake does not coincidence with this milk production. And if we want to know the average time when cow should resume its cycles, it is said to be 21 days after birth. But usually we can see it very often if we are doing a clinical inspection, because they may show this ovarian function may start, but usually this first heat we will not see, because first postpartum heat is usually silent. But around day 30, 35, absolutely we should, in normal conditions, we should see already these signs. Stress is a factor which is also a lot of investigations have been done during the last 20-25 years. And again, if our managerial conditions are such that the cow is stressed. And now, if the stress, anyway, the parturition is stress. This is a physiological stress. And now, if the organization of the parturition and not only the organization of the parturition, but also the feeding before parturition and after parturition, and if the overgrouping or after parturition or during the parturition is not well done, or is not, it's not well organized, it's always stress for the animal, and also this very highest stress factor may also lead to anistus, because those cows who are stressed, they consume dry matter less, they are not eating so well, and if they are not eating so well, the one consequence is this anistus or subnistus. And about this ovarian atrophy, what might happen that ovaries are very small after parturition, I already drew some slides ago. And this grouping is very, very important, because the biggest mistake what was done more than 20 years ago, and what was also done in many Estonian farms. Now, in all Estonian farms, they are very carefully looking for that. We should not keep after parturition the first calved heifers and the cows together. They must be kept separate. At least during the first months, first calved heifers group should be separate group, and the cow group should be separate group. One reason, because we already know that the heifers, the lactation is coming, they are still growing, they are more susceptible for this, to fall into this anistus period. But one factor, important factor is here, because we are going to compare the primiparous heifers eating behavior with nutiparous cows eating behavior. We will see that the total daily meal time, it's a minutes per day. The primiparous, they are spending 213 minutes per day for eating, but the cows are spending just 187 minutes. One meal duration for the primiparous is 27 minutes. For the cows, this is less, it's 24 minutes. But what is interesting is that despite on that those primiparous animals, they are spending more time for feeding here. They actually consume less than nutiparous cows. And now what happens when we put them together? Nutiparous cows, they are always stronger. They are more competent. They compete better, and they are more experienced. And usually those first calved heifers, they are afraid. They are more stressed. And when they are together, and especially if there is enough feeding table, if there is not enough space, usually the first place on the feeding table those nutiparous cows are taken. And those who are heifers who are afraid, who are stressed, they are standing there, they are waiting for they need. And the same situation is with this bedding, with the laying places. If we have overcrowded barn, and now if there is not enough lying spaces, usually the old cows, nutiparous cows, are always getting the better places, heifers are in the bad places. And this all is stress, and they cannot consume, even if they want to consume, they cannot consume as much as they want. And it will lead to that we will not see, we cannot inseminate those first cows in a normal time. And that was quite a big problem in our heads. But now, when the new barns are built in Estonia, this is absolutely all our farmers. At least during first months, they are separated. They start to move those first calved heifers to the cows at the end of the first months, after day 24 usually. And how the nutrition is affecting this reproduction is again the patch of hormones, because all the body functions is regulated by the hormones, and if the nutrition is on that side, then there is three very important tissues inside the body. In cow point of view, the most important is the liver, of course. And then the adipose tissue and the pancreas. And reproduction is regulated. That's not only the ovaries and the reproductive tract. There is always in the brain is this reproductive center in the brain. Everything starts here from the brain. Hormones, FSH, LH, they start to come from the brain. And if the liver, if the nutrition is bad, it means that there is no energy in the nutrition enough. The liver is suffering first. And what happens? Usually there is not enough energy, there is not enough glucose. And this glucose is very important for this central nervous system. If the nutrition is bad, it may be very easily happen that all energy, all the glucose is taken to the other for the milk, but the rest of the body tissues, they have lack of glucose. Also, if in every cow there should be a certain body reserves, adipose tissue, and this adipose tissue gives the leptin. This is a very new hormone discovered 30 years ago. But this leptin is also responsible for this reproductive center work in the brain here. And also the liver is influencing the ovaries down there. And the pancreas is influencing how the ovaries are working. And if there is not enough glucose, if there is not enough leptin, first of all, there will be no these two hormones enough from the central nervous system, which are influencing the ovaries work. And even if maybe there is enough those hormones, and the pancreas is not working normally, and the liver is not supporting the IGF-1 and insulin here, these two, IGF-1 and insulins, are very important for development of the follicles. And if there is not enough those hormones, the follicles are not developing normally, and very often we will not see the unmeisters, but we will see the ovarian pathology, and we will see the ovarian cysts after pathology. It might be the reason. And again, the overfeeding is dangerous, because here again, if we have a balanced feeding before pathology, and I would like to mention that even if we have a balanced feeding before pathology, even in case of balanced feeding, there is always drop in the feed intake during the pathology and some 2 weeks after pathology. And then this energy intake is going back to plus side, so to say. But if we overfeed, if the energy intake before pathology is very high, those cows are falling to very deep negative energy balance of the pathology, and the recovering is roughly 3 weeks later than on those cows who had balanced energy intake their part. And what it means that absolutely on those cows, the first ovulations very easily may happen here already at the end of the first months, and on those cows who falling for a very deep energy balance, the resumption of ovarian activity will happen several weeks later. And if it happens that some metabolic disease will be catched here by animal, for example ketosis, then it might happen that we will see the first ovulation maybe somewhere here. And this should be normal. This should be normal. Because this is the progesterone peaks here, and this shows us every progesterone rise. Those are the days after pathology here, up to 140. And early this progesterone rise here is the 1 cl. It means that this cow was a very normal cow. She had first ovulation already here, progesterone was going down. She had second ovulation here, after that the progesterone is going down. She had a third ovulation here, the same. And finally, she was inseminated here. I have only one question here, why this cow was not inseminated already somewhere? I'm absolutely sure that we would achieve the pregnancy. But okay, she was inseminated here, and after that the progesterone stay high, she immediately gets pregnant. This is the normal case, how it should be. But in high productive herds, very often we will see such curve. And we can call this as a delayed cyclicity, which might be related to anestrus, which means that the progesterone is quite low until almost day 100 here, and only after that the ovulation starts. And but anyway, we will see some rise here, and if we will see that the progesterone is here less than 10, most likely this cow had an ovarian cyst. And especially luteal cysts in the ovary, they are giving such a precise, just persistent, quite a low progesterone here. And also, if there are such ovarian cysts, such a progesterone levels, all this is related with negative energy balance. It might be one reason. But finally, this cow recovered. She had first ovulation here, and quite soon the second ovulation. She was inseminated and she was getting pregnant. But what is the problem? What we want, the normal time for inseminations is somewhere here. And it means that we lose the days here. The find every lost days is the money. And if we have such a condition, the major risk factors for such a delayed cyclicity are the clinical signs of negative energy balance. What is the clinical sign of negative energy balance? What is the clinics? The clinics is that cow is losing the body weight. I don't know how you are doing in Georgia, but in Estonia we are evaluating the body condition score. We started to do it before parturition, and this will be done after parturition either every week or after every second week until the second month of postpartum. And if we will see, and we are using this 5-point scale, it's the Edmonton scale, and the steps are 0.5. And the cow body condition score, according to this 5-point scale, should be 3 or 3.0 or 3.25 at the moment of parturition. And it should not fall more than 2.75. If it's less than 2.75, it's the indication that cow is losing more body weight than expected, and then very easily such kind of problems may appear. And this body condition score is usually it's once a week after parturition should be done. Because if we will see that there is a change in body condition score, we can immediately take measures. We can improve the feeding, or we can organize the regrouping or whatever. Silent heat is a quite a big headache also in modern dairy herds. We should, as I mentioned already, that usually the first postpartum heat in cow is normally silent. And why we will not see the heat symptoms there is that quite immediately after postpartum, let's say that during first 3 weeks, there is no estrogen receptors. So it means that estrogen is not rising. And why it is so? It is so because the progesterone is also low after parturition. Because this corpus luteum who produced the progesterone during the parturition is gone, and there is no placenta is also gone. Placenta is also the source of progesterone during the pregnancy. But the progesterone is needed to induce the estrogen receptors, and it means that when the first ovulation, which happens usually without heat signs, and after that the CL is appearing, and progesterone is going down, and immediately there will be also estrogen receptors. And this means that the second ovulation usually restricts. And again, knowing this fact, we can use those intravaginal devices for those cows who are not showing the heat of the population during the normal time. These intravaginal devices, I don't know how you use them in Georgia, breed and see them. You haven't used, but they are quite common. And if cow is not showing the heat, already 50-60 days is past, body condition score is more or less okay. The reason might be that there is some hormonal disbalance, and then we introduce this intravaginal device. It consists of progesterone, and this artificial progesterone is inducing the next heat. But I have some slides about that also coming soon. And if the heat is a silent, or there is a lack of heat expressed, we can also refer it as a silent, as an issues toward the silent heat. And this is quite difficult to measure. But from my own experience, and also not only from my own experience, but from many countries, from the farmers, I have been listening to complaints that as much as we get the milk from the cow, it's much more difficult to find the heat sometimes. Just these cows are not showing the normal heat. And also, during the last years, quite a lot of scientific papers are also confirming those complaints. And there is two problems related. One is that we want to get more milk from cow, and this more milk will lead to that the cows are in negative energy balance. The negative energy balance is more heat, and the negative energy balance is more water. And this also influencing these heat expressions and heat symptoms. And what is also happening with the cow during the last 25-30 years is that if you are reading the textbooks, for example, in textbooks you will find that the cow heat length is 18 hours. In many textbooks are saying that, and they are still saying. But the research what is done during the last 10-15 years says that in high productive Holstein cows, the average estrus length is 14.7 hours just. So, and it means that and only 37% of them show standing heat. It means that we should be very, very careful, more careful with heat observation. And also, in many farms, in Estonia and also in other countries, if we know that if we have a cow who is using 10,000 or more, maybe if we know that the heat length is short, maybe we should bring the insemination time a little bit back. Maybe this rule, morning, evening, morning insemination is not the best on such cows. Maybe we should change our insemination schedules. So, and also the second, this is also one reason why quite a lot of different heat synchronization schemes have been taken to use in the last 20-25 years to avoid these problems. There might be another problem. If we are taking our modern high productive herds and because of course what we humans are trying to do, we are trying to offer the animals the best conditions, the best environment. But anyway, did we still exactly know what cow wants? Of course, if we are doing something correct, in cow response for us is more milk. This says us that we have done good things. But anyway, some of those good things are also leading to the problems. And those problems are coming with this modern environmental conditions that we are offering for the cow. Because in the Europe, most modern dairy farms are using the complete floors. And this complete floors usually means that the floor surface are often very slippery. And according to statistics, we will see that there is a quite higher percentage of food and egg products. And again in Estonia also, if I'm going back in time, 25-30 years, the percentage of the leg problems as a reason for the culling from the egg was roughly 3-5%. From the last year, the culling percentage due to leg problems from our head was nearly 20%. And of course, if the cow have a foot and leg problems, these cows are not exhibiting the issues behavior now. Because they have pain, they are not jumping, they are not playing with another cows. It's very difficult to catch them. Some studies are done, and this is I found some years ago quite a nice study where is actually compared the heat duration, those heat symptoms, amount of heat symptoms, and percentage of silent heats in the cows who are kept in concrete slats and who are kept in a wood chip bags. And all the figures here are showing us that the more worse is the situation that we are using these concrete slats. Duration of the heat is shorter compared to this solid belly. Also, number of mountings are much less than here, and also the percentage of silent heats is much bigger than here. It means that these concrete floors, they are not always the best, and the main problem here is the bottom difference. Okay, there might be also the human factor, because we humans, we must observe the heat, and if we have in the head a person who is responsible for the heat detection, he should turn attention for the heat detection, not for another things. Like here, there is a nice two cows are observing the heat, but there are newts, and this is more interesting to see than this, and that also. And I think that this is also quite a big problem in the big farms, this heat observation, because there are very nice schemes, very nice point scales for heat observation. But if you have a farm where is more than 500 cows, or you have 1,000 cows, this is very difficult to organize this good observation. This is much more easy in the small farms. If you have a head 100 or 50 or 200 cows or so, this is much more easy, because the number of animals what you should follow is much less than in the big farms. And as people are missing quite a lot of heats in the cows, that is again the reason why, for example, in the United States, they are using these courses. In 90% they are using these heat synchronization schemes. They are not keeping any more people for the heat detection. Because these courses, researchers are saying, if we have a person responsible for heat observation, and we inseminate according to her or his heat observation, and we will get the pregnancy rate 55%. And if we are going to use those synchronization schemes, and we will get the pregnancy rate more or less the same, 50 or nearly 55%, try to keep the person when the schemes are working almost the same way. Probably we will save the money, because people work is always more expensive than usually those methods. So, and And excellent heat detection is very, very important. And of course, it means that with a very good cow identification system, we can follow the numbers. We know that those are the cows, what should this group of the cows are the cows, what we should observe. So, and the mistakes, what is very often to be done when concerning the heat detection, is that this is done in the wrong moment of the day. Because to do it during the milking or to do it during the feeding, this is not the best. Also, we should do that if human is doing that at least 3 times a day. This is a good to perform. And the time is very important. At least 20 minutes, better even more. And I can give you now a very good coin maybe, what you can probably use. I don't know you have those materials or not, but this is the Netherlands people have been done such a table here. And from out of that table, it comes nicely that, of course, you can spend for heat detection, you can do that just 2 times a day. And you may get the percentage as 75 if you are doing it at least 30 minutes and if you are doing it in the right time. Usually 10 o'clock is the time when milking is over and the feeding is over, and then again this time here is also the time when the evening feeding is over and the evening milking is over. And if the person is spending at least half an hour to follow, we may catch the percentage at least. But this percentage starts immediately to fall if we will lose the time. We will see that the results are quite poor. And of course, if we are looking at the percentages here, with 2 times, even here, on those times, at least 30 minutes, again, quite a good percentage. But when the percentage is going down to 60, I will not consider this as a good percentage. And highest percentages, of course, are here, especially here. And of course, you will see that if we are doing it at least 5 times a day, and every time we are spending 30 minutes, we may get the percentage roughly higher as 86%. Of course, this is not possible in many farms to do that, because to do it 5 times, more than 30 minutes or more than 30 minutes, it really needs a certain person already. But the biggest problem, what I will see in Estonia, is that there are persons who are responsible for that. But beside the heat observations, those persons should do different than others. They should be in the cows, they should be in the bedding stand, they should give the birth assistance. And usually what happens that for the heat observations, less time is left. And when I'm making a consultation for the farms, and if I will see that the heat observation might be a problem, what I'm usually asking is that if you have a person and if you have done this person as a responsible, put it in her or his list that it is his duty and give for her or him a certain time for that, and she should do only that, nothing else. And together with that person, please discuss the suitable times for the observation. And I can give a very good example from the fun farm in Estonia. It was quite a nice farm, the production level nearly 10,000, and the day pregnancy rate was all the time 82%. And very simple reason. There was an old lady who was working previously on that farm, and he was going to retirement, but he wants to work with animals, and he was going to this head of this farm and said, "Can you give me your work? I don't want big money, but give me work that I can do something in the farm." And believe me, I know the animals. And then this farm manager gave her the work as a heat observer. And this lady was working there 2 years, and I was working there with this farm, and the pregnancy rate was all the time 80, 82, 83. And then this old lady got the brain attack, and then she died. And she lost this lady, and after 4 months, the pregnancy rate was falling down to 60, 55. And this is a very good example. I always like to give this as an example. How important is this observation? And if there is a person who is knowing how to do that and what to do. But again, now what kind of schemes? What kind of schemes we can use if we have a problem that we are thinking that
One moment. Problem is with the microphone.
It's not good.
Maybe you have Какво измис? Да. iPhone ne izvodiš, no?
Okay, but if we think and if we understand, or if someone has been as a consultant in your farm, and this person suggestion is that you should develop your observation or your heat detection is not in a very good order, your cows are nice, what we can do? And in this case, of course, the most used scheme in all over the world nowadays is this ovulation scheme. I don't know how common it is in Georgia, but in Estonia many farms are using this ovulation synchronization scheme. This ovsync means that we can synchronize the ovulation. And this is quite easy to implement actually. It means that if we have a cow, normal cow, no negative energy balance, a normal body condition, ovaries are working, so at least the ovaries are in normal size. And then we can implement to that cow GnRH. This is the GnRH. I don't know, Rovaline is this the product name which is available all over Europe. I think probably you have it also in Georgia. But the active substance inside this is a GnRH. And then you can do it on Monday, for example. And then 7 days after that, you inject the prostaglandins. Enzaprost, Enstofan, whatever. There is many available. So. And then 2 days after the prostaglandins, you inject again the GnRH. And then roughly about 23-24 hours later, there will be insemination. Despite on that other heat symptoms are not. If cow is showing heat somewhere here, of course we will inseminate. We are not waiting for the next injection. Sorry? Okay. What this GnRH is doing? This GnRH, the first shot of GnRH, usually it causes the ovulation. And then CL is developing, and on the same time when CL starts to develop, also the new follicular waves start to develop. And now, 7 days later, this CL is big enough. If we inject the prostaglandin F12, we destroy the CL here, but already we have a big follicle here waiting. Progesterone is going down, and now when this CL is destroyed, the follicle is getting even more bigger, and this second shot of GnRH will lead this follicle to ovulation. Sometimes there will be a heat symptoms, sometimes not, but in most of the cows there will be ovulation, and we can inseminate. Nowadays, during the last 3 or 5 years, there has been a modification of this ovsync. And I implemented this modification in Estonia some 2 years ago, and I can say that the results are quite good. From this classical off-sync, the pregnancy rate is usually 40% or so. Sometimes 50. But believe me, if you are going to use those artificial hormones, artificial schemes, if you will get the result 40-50%, this is a very good result. Everything which is already more than 50, this is bonus. 50% is excellent. But the modification, what the Wisconsin's cattlemen are using now, and we are, many farms in Estonia are also using it. Everything is the same until that part here. Only difference is that we are not keeping interval here 48 hours, 2 days. This interval we are keeping 56 hours, and it should be 56 hours. And the insemination is done more or less 16 hours after this 56. And this modification gives roughly 5% higher pregnancy. That's the reason why we choose that. There is a second option also. If we don't want to observe the heat in postpartum house, and if our management is okay, we know that in our head is not very big negative energy balance in the cows, then what we can do is that we can use this resume. Maybe you heard about that, maybe some else in Georgia also using it, I don't know. And this resume means that we can start to work with it somewhere between 32 to 37 days after parturition. My suggestion is better later than early. So, and let's say that around day 37, we are doing the first injection of prostaglandins. Then, interval 14 days, we are doing the second shot of prostaglandins. And if we started on day 37, the second shot of prostaglandins will be day 51. And now, 12 to 14 days with interval, somewhere around day 65, we start to implement off-sync protocol. The same off-sync what was in the previous slide. And it gives to us that roughly around day 70-75, all the cows are inseminated. If the postpartum management, if the postpartum control of the reproductive tract of the cows is in a proper order, if they have no inflammation, no endometritis, if the feeding is okay, with that system, without heat observation, you may get also the pregnancy rate roughly 45-50%. Problems what might arise here, again my experience, one farm in Estonia, when we implemented this, they want to start very early. They started to implement the first injections already around day 30-31. Yeah, they did it, about 1 month they did it, but the pregnancy rate was very bad. Pregnancy rate was less than 30%. And then I asked them that at the beginning, my opinion was that you are starting it too early. Cows are still not ready for that. But you didn't believe me. But let's try now. Let's start around day 40. And they started around day 40. And after 2 months, the pregnancy rate was more than 50. And it means that there are risks. And then the big risk is that if you are starting too early, that the organism and the reproductive tract for the cow is not ready for that. So, and why using those schemes is a good? What we can gain with this off-sync protocol? Also, we can so to say influence to exhibit the cyclicity in some cows who were in anestrus using this orsum. For example, there were cows who were in anestrus, but this orsum, this GnRH, may lead those cows also to be cycled. Most of the farms who had problems and who started to implement those schemes, after some months, they increased the overall pregnancy rate in the herds. It's good to group the animals because you can group them, you can form the groups, batch of the animals who needs to be inseminated. You can implement the schemes for those animals, and if they're getting pregnant, you know that this batch of animals will be called in a certain time. You can make a prognosis for that time. Also, it's a fixed time insemination. It means that you are doing the inseminations in a certain time. Also, if there is a cows who have conditions called delayed ovulation, you can also avoid these delayed ovulations. So, and also this also is working in the heat stress conditions. This is also very important, I think, especially for your country, as your temperatures are high, and you can try this also if there is this period of heat stress. Again, the scientific papers are saying that you can increase the pregnancy rate about roughly 11% if you're using it during the heat stress conditions. And I'm now jumping a little bit back. There might be questions now. I don't know, probably I already mentioned that if you are doing the injections and you will see the heats, occasionally the cow is running in heat, okay, we are inseminating. Then we are not continuing, we are inseminating. And the same is here. Here is maybe too early to make the inseminations. But if you will see that the natural heat is coming after injections here, of course we are going to inseminate because the pregnancy rate will be better. And again, when is right to start to make the insemination after parturition? Usually around day 50 is the day when we are starting in Estonia. 50 days or beyond 50 days is good to start. But it doesn't mean that we are not observing the heat before. Heat observation in Estonia starts already 25-30 days after parturition. They are starting to catch the heats. But if there is cow in heat around day 35 after parturition, usually we are not doing the insemination. Because in physiological point of view, this is too early. Again, my own experience, I can say that there have been some farms in Estonia, they did the inseminations around day 35, between day 35 and 40. And again, the pregnancy rate was quite bad. It's something 25-30%. But usually we are starting from day 50. That's the goal. There is another option. What we can do. This is this artificial luteal phase, and this is the using these progesterone devices, intravaginal progesterone devices. And or again, we can combine this with option, this progesterone. And the beta is the most common which is used in Baltic states now. And this is this device. It's a plastic silicone device which is inserted to cow vagina, and this spiral or device is consisting of progesterone. And this device is kept inside the vagina 7 days usually, and we introduce this artificial progesterone, artificial luteal phase, and before removal, around 24 or 48 hours, you can do it also 2 times, either 24 hours before removal or 48 hours before removal, we inject prostaglandins. So, and then on day 7 is the removal, and the artificial insemination is done 56 hours after the removal of this device. And also the pregnancy rate can be 40-45%. If you are going to do that in AFRS, you may achieve the pregnancy rate already 60-65. AFRS are responding better. And if to use it in AFRS, my suggestion is that it's good to use on such an AFRS whose age is already 16-17 months. They are not inseminated, or they are not getting pregnant. Then these devices might give the result for us. And if you are going to use those devices on cows, it's better to use on such cows who have not showing the heat after fertilization, who might be in non-estrus. And on those cows, this artificial progesterone, which is released from this device, is initiating these estrogen receptors. And after that, even if the cow is not getting pregnant, after the removal and after this insemination, at least these cows are showing us the normal cycles later on. Okay, generally, my question, how common is to use those schemes in Georgia? Are they used or not?
Use what, sorry?
The off-sync and press-sync schemes.
The synchronization?
Yes.
Not very often, but some farmers use it.
Yeah, because I think that I know that you have in Georgia also big farms, and I know that you bought quite a lot of animals from Estonia, because many farms here are AFRS are now already cows. They are now already cows coming from Estonia, and if you have problems with heat observation and such kind of things, my strong suggestion is that maybe you can try these things. Okay. Now, delayed ovulation. 2 slides ago, I mentioned that can be also one problem. This is not very big problem, but there is roughly up to 3% of the cows might present this problem. And why this is a bad? The cow is showing heat. So, and sometimes this heat is longer than expected. So we inseminated this cow, but she's still in heat 24 hours later. Then we should do the second insemination, but the final outcome will be that the cow will not be pregnant at all. And if the ovulation is not occurring in normal time, it leads to condition that the oocyte inside the follicle is getting too old. And when the ovulation finally occurs, the oocyte is too old that this oocyte is lost the fertilization condition. Even if we made the insemination, just there might be that the sperm and oocyte they are getting together, but just the fertilization is not occurring because there is no any more potential for this oocyte to be fertilized. And what to do here? What to do here is that if we know that we have in the herd such cows who have long heat, and we should do 2 inseminations. One way is again to inject the GnRH together with insemination. We know that this cow is with long heat. We have been inseminated 1-2 times, heat is long, not pregnant. Maybe the chance is that now we are doing the insemination, and together with inseminations we are using the GnRH. What this GnRH is doing is the outcome is that roughly after 1 hour, luteinizing hormone is going up, and it will stay higher roughly 4 hours, and this is enough for causing ovulation. It means that most of such cows, our injection is leading to ovulation. Alternative method is, of course, yes, to have two inseminations, one during heat, another 24 hours later, when animal is still showing heat, but again, I'm commenting that the pregnancy results from that is not so good. And the main reason is this aged both sides. I think that to do it in that way is better. Also, what may cause anistus, we will not see heat, is the pyometra. And pyometra, usually if there is a pyometra in a cow looks like quite healthy. No problems, no any discharge from the vagina, but what those cows, they are not showing the heat. And usually we will find this condition 2 months or even more later of the pathologization when this cow is given for inspection, why she is not in heat. And then when veterinarian is doing the inspection, what he or she is running is a big uterus usually, there is fluctuation in the uterus, and if we are going to use the ultrasound shows us that there is a purulent discharge inside the uterus, but nothing is not coming out from vagina because the cervix is closed. And why these cows are not showing heat is that there is always inside the ovary is the CL. And why the CL is there? The CL is there because uterus is filled with this purulent discharge, and this purulent discharge didn't let endometrium to release the prostaglandins. There is no agents which will kill this CL. And this persistent CL is keeping the cow not showing the heat. And what we can do here is the repeated prostaglandins. It means that we should inject the prostaglandins at least 2 times. Interval between injections either 12 hours or 24 hours. But the result what we will get will not always be so good. Why? Because this pyometra is a chronic inflammation. It means that the uterus has been inflamed quite a long time. And there is always possibility that the endometrial layer of the uterus is destroyed. It is called, okay, we will get the red, the uterus on this discharge, but the pregnancy rate on those cows later on, if we are going to inseminate, this is very bad. Mummified fetus can also be the reason why cows are not showing the heat. And for example, I have 3 mummies standing in the freezer at home in the stove. And all those mummies are from the cows who were inseminated. They made ultrasound diagnostics. They were confirmed as to be pregnant. There was made a second pregnancy check around day 65. They were still confirmed to be pregnant. But then the final pregnancy check before try-off, no pregnancy, quite small uterus. Some hard, rounded thing inside the uterus, and they have not shown any heat. And it means that this mummified fetus, it means that the fetus is dying usually during the first trimester of the pregnancy, and it's mummified inside the uterus. And why the cow is not showing heat, this mummy inside the uterus is again preventing endometrium to release the prostaglandins to remove this CL of the pregnancy. And what to do? Of course, if this process, if the lactation days are very many on this cow already, yeah, quite a lot of cases this cow is going to culling, but if this is a very variable cow and the production is still quite high, we can use the prostaglandins, 2 shots of prostaglandins again, interval 12 hours or 24 hours, and usually this mummy is expelled. Because prostaglandins are also infections, and the mummy is expelled. And after that, cow is usually showing estrus quite soon. Uterus unicornis, very rare condition, also can be a problem with anestrus. And usually, yeah, I have seen it in my life 2 or 3 times. And this is also a embryonical development problem, that the uterus is not normally formed. And the problem is that there might be a both ovaries, but just the one uterine fold is there. And now the problem why the cow is not showing heat is that if the ovulation has been happening from that side of the genital glands, and this CL will be there, and the cow is not showing the heat. And again, those cows usually are going to color. Cystic ovarian disease is a pathology related to ovaries. Again, quite common in modern dairy cows. It's related to milk production. It's also related to nutrition. So, and again, the diagnosis is not so difficult if veterinarian is doing that, and if the veterinarian have an experience. Usually, it's possible to detect it by hand. Ultrasound is, of course, is the best. Because if we're using the ultrasound, it's very good to differentiate between the cysts, what type of cyst there is. Is it luteinized cyst or is it follicular cyst? But thanks God, nowadays the treatment schemes are the same for in case of both cysts. It doesn't matter is there a luteal cyst or is there a follicular cyst. And what the cyst is? First of all, there should not be the corpus luteum in the ovary, either on the right or left ovary. And then, if we palpate, we will find a large fluid-filled structure. It's a fluctuating, and usually the diameter is more than 2.5 centimeters. But we should not consider the diameter as the only thing to diagnose, because some CLs, some follicles, might also be as big as 3 centimeters in diameter. But we should make a palpation several days later. And if we will make the same cow, the palpation for the same cow, let's say 10 days later, and on the same ovary, on the same place on the ovary, is the same size structure still present, this is the cyst, absolutely. Because if it would be a CL, CL should be decreased during that time. If it would be the follicle should be gone at that time. But cyst is usually still there when it's cyst. Two types cysts we know, they are follicular and luteal cysts. Follicular cyst consists of fluid-filled cavity, and the lining around is a layer of theca cells. And those theca cells, they produce the progesterone, but they have no prostaglandin receptors. It means that yeah, they are not influenced by prostaglandins. If the granulosal cells persist in untransformed stage, it means that usually theca cells, there is two types, large luteal cells and small luteal cells. But if there is only large luteal cells, these cows are showing constant estrous behavior. So that because in this case there is an estrogen production. But luteal cysts, they have only larger theca cells, and they are not, those cows who have luteal cysts, they are usually not showing any heat symptoms. They are just in anestrus, and if we make a palpation, we will find this type of structure. There might be also the corpus luteum, which will have the cavity, and we can call this as a cystic corpus luteum. But this cystic corpus luteum is not considered as a pathology, because every corpus luteum, during the development, there is a small cavity inside. But usually this cavity will be filled with luteal tissue around day 13-14 of the cycle. Some CLs, this cavity will stay until the end of their life. It means that on day 16, 17 when they start to degenerate. But this C6Cl is not pathological. So this is the example. Very nice follicular cyst. This is an ovary. And this is a cyst with two chambers. This is a one chamber here. This is another chamber here. And this is a very thin wall between. And the biggest cyst I have seen by ultrasound was that I couldn't measure. It was so big. It was 15 centimeters. And when I touched it quite strongly, then it was broken. Yes. But this is here is more than 5 centimeters. And they are fluid filled. And sometimes this is a test done. And this is the ovary now. And before there was a cyst, and this cyst is falling now down there because it was aspirated. The liquid was aspirated out from the follicle, and you can see that the amount of the liquid inside this cyst was almost 50 milliliters. And now you can imagine how big it can be if we will put this liquid back inside. This is the luteal cyst. This is different. You will see that the color is different. The color is more white, and this white color indicates that there is more luteal tissue than in the follicular cyst. And it means that yes, there is a liquid inside, but the liquid amount is less, and the wall of the cyst is more thicker than in luteal cyst, in follicular cyst case. And if we will make an incision here, we will see this thick wall here, especially on that part. The wall is quite thick here, and also we will see that it's quite thick here. And in luteal cysts, usually they have those luteal tissue flakes which are directed towards to the lumen of the cyst. And by ultrasound, this is very nice to see those luteal tissue flakes here is possible to see. And they are fluctuating there inside the liquid. And by hand, now this, if we want to differentiate by rectal palpation, then it's not so easy, maybe, because these luteal cysts is possible to make a mistake and mix them with CLs, especially with CLs with cysts, who have this cavity inside with the CLs. But generally, according to my experience, I can say that if we have a follicular cysts, they are more often in both ovaries. Luteal cysts is a tendency to be in a one ovary. So, and the treatment, I'm coming on that, and why they are paired. And quite often we will find them in cows during the postpartum period. And one reason, which is also investigated during recent years, is this stress factor. And again, the pathogen is anyway physiological stress for the animal. But if there is something wrong beside this physiological stress, we have something wrong with nutrition, or is there something wrong with surroundings, with management around the cow, so to say, then the cow is suffering the stress. And what this stress is doing, the stress is also reflecting the central nervous system. And the stress effect is that from the hypophysis, adrenocorticotropic hormone is released. This is a stress hormone, and this stress hormone is influencing the adrenal glands, and from adrenal glands the cortisol is coming. And usually in stress situation this cortisol is high, and this cortisol is inhibiting this GnRH release from the central nervous system. And as there is no GnRH, there is no those hormones here, and especially there is lack of LH, and follicles which are developing inside the ovary, they are not ovulating, but very often the cysts are formed. And this is very, very interesting that if the stress level is very high, as much there is cortisol, this cortisol is influencing this hypophysis here, and more adrenocorticotropic hormone is coming, and this is a small circle is forming here. And this big circle is influencing this central nervous system up there. And of course the nutrition. Of course the nutrition is very important. And again, this metabolism and metabolic messengers are those which are informing the reproductive center in the brain and also informing the organism on the level of ovary here. And again, if there is not enough nutrients, especially if there is not enough insulin or insulin-like growth factors, those follicles inside the ovary are not forming normally. And usually, if there is those two hormones are less, and if there is not enough energy, usually NEFAs are rising. NEFA is non-esterified fatty acids, which are formed if the cow is in negative energy balance. And those NEFAs are extremely dangerous because if the NEFA level inside the follicular liquid is going high, this immediately leads to disturbances of proliferation of the cells of the follicle. And this usually those follicles are not going to the ovulation, there is a disturbances in the cell development, and those follicles will develop as cysts. They became to be cysts. And of course, if there is not enough energy, then not enough LH. And also if there is not enough LH, there will be no ovulations. And different observations are done concerning those NEFAs, and this is one of the reasons which is done in Netherlands when they were looking the different NEFAs and the different NEFA effect on granulosal cell proliferation, and they did it in the laboratory, and they were growing the follicular cells there, and they add to this liquid where the follicular cells were growing the different cocktails of NEFA. And it's very nice to see that in the control cells where NEFA was not added, there was much more healthy cells than in case when they added those NEFAs to the liquid where the follicular cells were. And there is only 60%, so to say, healthy cells were staying. And this is and if the cow is in negative energy balance, usually there is a higher NEFA in the blood, and usually there is a higher DHB, better oxygen rates in the blood. And usually it happens during the postpartum, and that's the reason why there is always high incidence of cysts during postpartum. And if we are going to treat it, and if we know now that there is more tendency to have the cysts during the postpartum, and the cow is in negative energy balance during the postpartum, but cow must recover from this negative energy balance, and we must support the cow for recovery. And just the behavior nowadays is so that we are giving the cow possibility to recover himself. And it means that usually during first 40 days postpartum, we are not treating the cyst. Even if we diagnose the cyst there around day 25 or 30, we are not going to treat. We control this cow 2 or 3 weeks later. If the cyst is still there, we are implementing the treatments. And the main goal, if we are going to treatment, the main goal is we should generate the luteal structures in the ovary, and the GnRH administration is what is helping us. And if we are so good in diagnosis that we exactly know that this is the luteal cyst, then immediately we can use the prostaglandins. But nowadays, The most used treatment in case of cysts is the implementing of this option program. Because on this option program, there is the GnRH inside this program, and there is also prostaglandins inside this program. And it will influence the both cystitis, follicular and luteal cysts. Okay, there must be a break, I think. So, okay. And one more thing, and then I think that we will make a break before we are going to the ultrasound side. And there are risk factors. There might be always a risk factors, those factors which are pointing towards some issues. If you have them in your head, for example, if you cannot inseminate your cows in a normal time perspective, it means that there is a prolongation of the interval from maturation to first insemination. Usually it should be roughly 60 days. If it's more, maybe the one problem might be non-issues. Your cows are not showing this. Also, maybe you should check your heat observation. Maybe you are not spending so much time as needed. Maybe your heat observation is not good, and this leads to an issue. If you have a laying cows, if you have many laying cows in your head, I'm absolutely sure that in your head are the cows who are in anisters. And in anisters are those cows who are the laying cows. And also the protein concentration in the milk in the postpartum period, if the protein is higher than fat, this is a reflection that something is wrong with nutrition, and probably you have not enough energy in the inhalation.